So I bike out, I do this loop, and I'm, like I said, out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere by the farms, by myself. And I'm like exhausted. Like the thought of having to go up another hill, which you have to do, even though we are in Edmonton, we do have a couple hills. I just was like, I honestly like don't think I can keep going. This was a mistake. Like, why did I think I could do this? So I like sat down and I took a break, which again, like is also kind of frowned upon in swimming. Like you don't stop, you don't take breaks. So this was that, like, again, stopping, had a snack, had some water, had the electrolytes, got back on my bike. By the time I got home, I was like, oh, I feel great actually. Like, didn't even remember that I was basically like sitting contemplating my whole choice to do that half Ironman on the side of the road because I was just kind of so tired, so out of it, and was able to bounce back instantaneously, like almost magically, right?
Welcome back, everyone. We got another episode on the Plate Full of Insights podcast. I'm Brandon. You've seen me a ton. I am super grateful to be joined today by one of the amazing people on our team who we have not had on the podcast yet. And as far as I know, this episode is coming after we did our podcast episode with one of our dietitians, Roshni, who I mistakenly thought was on the podcast before. But she wasn't. And this is Tassa's first time here. So Tassa, why don't you give a bit of an intro about what your background is, what you do for us, and then I'll intro the topic afterwards.
For sure. Well, thank you for having me, Brandon. I am super excited to be here. I work with Revive and my Viva doing a lot of fitness stuff. So I have my Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology, and now I kind of lead along with Shara, who don't know if you guys have you had Shara on yet in the order.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did.
Shara and I do a lot of stuff for my Viva plan on the fitness section. So that's creating content, running a lot of group sessions, which is always kind of my favorite. I have a background doing personal training, and I really love just kind of that one-on-one connection with people and being able to work with them, help them, and share some of my vast fitness and exercise knowledge.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Oh, and then sorry, I forgot about my whole running bit. So while I was doing my Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology, I actually got the great opportunity to swim at Simon Fraser. So that was a really great chance to have my sport take me away out of the province to do school as well as travel all over the States. We are in the NCAA D2. So got to go to California. We got to go to Hawaii, Chicago, all over the place. It was actually really, really great. And then like all, retired athletes, I kind of just had to fill all that time with some other form of torturous sport. So I chose running. Um, so now, I think I did my first half marathon 8 weeks after my like very last swim meet. I was like, the second this ends, like I'm getting right into something else. Like no time to just sit around and wait for it. Let's get right into it. So since then, I've done a half marathon. I've done a couple triathlons. I did a half Ironman last summer. So that was another half marathon, but with some biking before it. And now I'm currently training for another running half marathon in Calgary at the end of May.
Super cool. I I find it kind of comical when you refer to yourself as a retired athlete. It's kind of funny.
A bit of a
You're
swammer is
Yeah,
the term.
you swam swammer because you swam. You used
Exactly.
past tense. Got it. Love it. Yeah, and then go right into another sport that I've not swam uh, competitively, so I don't know the demand. But I think what was the word that you just used? You went from one of those intense sports to another grueling sport. I can't remember the word you used.
Yeah, like intense and laborious and isolating, right? It's
Yeah,
nothing,
yeah,
not a team sport, not really a game. It's not that fun. It's just you in training, but I like
yeah.
it, weirdly enough.
Love it. So the topic today, we're going to talk about nutrition strategies for recreational competitive athletes, the most broad topic anybody could come up with in this realm. But what I thought would be cool is to start with that and then wind our way through some key points that, and one I think pretty cool way to go about it is to talk about your journey as an athlete to this point and also moving forward, and particularly because you're actively training for an event. Then I'd be curious to know in the different uh, areas of sports nutrition and nutrition in general that applies to performance, what you've seen, what you've experienced, because there's always a cool way of presenting it from that type of perspective. So, and I'm to those wondering, I made Tassa aware of this ahead of time. This is not just something that I just tricked her into doing. Sound like fun? Love it. Okay. One of the things we were preparing for the episode beforehand, and Tassie, you noted that your perspective on nutrition's role in your performance changed from when you were a swimmer back at Simon Fraser to now training for a lot of endurance events. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that shift was?
For sure. I think, with swimming, especially at the university level, there's just so many moving pieces. Like you're the student and you're the athlete, right? They're big on the whole student part. So you have your whole school world going on, you have your whole athlete world going on. You're also living, a lot of us were living by ourselves for the first time. So there's just a lot of moving parts, and nutrition was never really one that was highlighted, at least in my university experience. It was never like what you should be eating or what you should be taking or what you need to be doing in order to, you know, keep up with this really hard demand. Like we were swimming over 20 hours a week, whether that was in the pool, in the gym, doing dry land, doing extracurricular sessions. We rock climbed for a bit. So it was kind of just assumed that you knew what you were doing when you got to university. There was nobody there to hold your hand. They kind of just pushed you off the deep end. So yeah, we were having, 2.5 hour sessions, just having water maybe. I know like some sessions I wouldn't even touch my water bottle. Couldn't stop to have a snack. Nobody, maybe there was Gatorade, not really any electrolytes, nothing like that. It was pretty much just like get in, swim, don't stop. And then after, obviously, we would go eat and sit in the dining hall for hours trying to like catch up, right? And so I think the biggest shift is I took away from swimming that I was somehow like immune to all of these rules. I thought, no, my glycogen stores, like my muscles have enough energy to last 2 hours. I don't need to refuel. I don't need to do any of this. And it took some like really long bike rides and long runs, and kind of got to that point where I hit that wall and was like, out on my bike, I'm out on a run, and I don't think I can make it home. I'm gonna have to call my mom, call my grandma, like someone's picking me up. This was a mistake. And then I would just, take a snack that I had packed because I'd pack it. But again, like I thought I was better. I thought I was above it. 20 minutes later, I was fine. I was like, I can actually keep biking for another hour and a half. I can make it home on my run. I can get through this. So I think it took a couple of those experiences to really reinforce the importance of nutrition for me. And I think it's funny because, again, like, growing up, we were always like always eating, always making sure that there was enough food to make it from one sport to the next and to keep us going. And in my degree, I took sports nutrition classes. Like none of this was news to me. I've known it for so long, but it just took that personal experience to really drill it home for me.
Yeah, I find it interesting how would you say your experience in competitive swimming, you weren't implementing a lot of the strategies that you've now come to know that are quite valuable from a nutrition perspective. Would you say you were still able to perform well when you were a swimmer?
Yeah, and that's the weird thing. Like it wasn't really like towards the end of practice I felt that same wall or anything. It was, you'd get out and you would feel it for sure. Like you were like, I don't even know if I can make it to the change room to put my clothes on to get some food in me, but I don't necessarily feel it the same way I do like running. I almost wonder if it's maybe because it's like swimming is a little less intense, less like impact and all that stuff. But I do wonder what, if any other programs like allow for snack breaks, or they have electrolyte drinks or those carb drinks, or if there is sort of like an actual change. I would be very interested to know because I never felt a difference difference when I was actually training, weirdly enough.
That is interesting. Uh, I mean, my mind always goes to if there would have been a difference had you had more opportunities. I've worked with many swimmers in the past, and a lot of what you said resonates with the things that I've seen. Practically, there's challenges because the schedule's busy, particularly if you're a student. And even if my athletes that are like in high school that are swimming competitively, training hours are lengthy, a lot of volume, so you're juggling a lot of things, and then the intensity of the training itself, not just from an exercise perspective, but just how busy the schedule is in a training session to be able to consume enough, or what theoretically would be enough fuel, seems very, very difficult. So it's maybe out of more of a necessity slash this is just the way that it is as to why that happens, not necessarily because it's ideal or not, but that's I've heard that a lot too, to the point where, speaking of strategies, my a lot of the strategies that I've worked on with some of my athletes who are swimmers is if being more pushy with their coach. A lot of times that conversation can be helpful, but the small things that you take for granted when you're training in a gym or inside on a track, or when you have easy access to refilling your water bottle, for example, if you don't have the option to get out at the pool and go fill it up, then keep 3 or 4 or 5 bottles on the side of the pool deck, like if that actually matters, if that's something that's needed. But it's a whole different game, because that's where, and I swear some of the athletes that I work with are like, come on, man, let's just get to the good stuff. But like the practical logistics, how's it going to come into play? Like routine plan, like it's kind of a cliche, but that stuff matters if your performance is significantly impacted by it, that it warrants working on it to begin with, right?
Exactly, and I think you said the practices are just so intense, like, you're not hungry, you're not thinking about food, it's not like a long run where you're kinda listening to music, a podcast, like, you're more aware with your feelings, like, all you're kinda thinking about the whole 2 hours is, like, the next rep, the next stroke, the next minute, right? And then I think to another point, like, it's just the culture of swimming, it's not the same, like, it's not like fueling strategies to swim, like, there's a reason why there's kind of it's hard to make those changes and implement those structural changes because it's just not really a thing in the swim world, so different for running, and that's kind of why I think I thought they were very synonymous and it was gonna be a easy swap, but I found it's quite the opposite.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, we could. I mean, I could do a whole episode on the practical strategies for swimming. But when you, I'm still chuckling. Like you thought you were immune to the things, but then you gave it a whirl when it came to the endurance sport world, running, cycling, and you mentioned kind of an aha moment of sorts. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I was actually out on a bike ride, and it was on a day off, and, I just remember being like, "I'm just gonna bike wherever I want," and you're on your bike, you can actually get s pretty good distance, like, you can just bike a good, like, 50 kilometers out, and there's, like, no one to stop you, no one to kinda tell you, like, "How are you gonna get back?" All that stuff, so
I'm making adult decisions here, right?
exactly. Like, no one knows where I am. I feel so cool right now. Anyway, so I bike out, I do this loop, and I'm, like I said, out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere by the farms by myself. And I'm like exhausted. Like the thought of having to go up another hill, which you have to do, even though we are in Edmonton, we do have a couple hills. I just was like, I honestly like don't think I can keep going. This was a mistake. Like, why did I think I could do this? So I like sat down and I took a break, which again, like is also kind of frowned upon in swimming. Like you don't stop, you don't take breaks. So this was that like again, stopping, had a snack, had some water, had the electrolytes, got back on my bike. By the time I got home, I was like, oh, I feel great actually. Like didn't even remember that I was basically like sitting contemplating my whole choice to do that half Ironman on the side of the road because I was just kind of so tired, so out of it, and was able to bounce back instantaneously, like almost magically, right?
Yep. That's cool. And I mean, it sucks to be in that situation, but I feel like Had you not had that happen, do you feel like you'd be in the position you are now where you recognize the value? I feel like there's a difference in having a situation like that happen where there's such a stark change in your performance versus maybe your performance does it is better if you are more hydrated and more well fueled, but if the differences are just so small, it's not as it doesn't hit the same way. What do you think?
I think it becomes like that just practicing what I preach because I've again like it's nothing I didn't know and nothing I haven't told other clients before, but when it came to doing it myself, I was just not there. So I think having that moment helped me kind of just like remember that now I'm the athlete. Now I'm the one who needs to be taking my own advice because if I want to be doing all these intense workouts, 4 or 5 times a week, and I want to be able to actually bring my 100% to the workouts, like what I eat in and around that workout during that workout is one of the things I can control. So if I can control all that stuff, I'm going to have a better session and I'm going to like it more. Like if I'm running and I'm miserable and it hurts because I'm battling some injuries, I'm hungry, like do you know what I'm saying? Like having these bad experiences that are directly related to me not eating enough, then I'm not going to want to run. I think it just really brings your enjoyment down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nobody wants to do a thing unless you have this next level drive to do something for some reason. Usually there's a thing in people's minds that drives them to do the things even though it hurts. But like, who wants to do a thing where you're miserable, you're sore all the time, it literally hurts to do it? It's like it just sounds like if you were in any context, it sounds like a disaster that nobody want to do ever, which makes sense, right? If you're actually fueled for it and hydrated, and we'll get to these pieces about like what you what sounds like changed, but like yeah, you're gonna push harder, but also you're gonna want to do it more. That's not to say that it's gonna like just magically erase all challenge, but your motivation to do it will be more naturally driven because you don't feel like a pile of crap.
Exactly. Like if you feel like you fueled well throughout the day and you're going into a workout, know you've kind of done everything right. You've got the great sleep, the great meals before, you have all your fuel in your little belt. Like you just know you're going to have a good run. And I think that confidence is then key to actually having that good run. If you're kind of in your head, you're like, oh, I had a bad sleep. I ate this. I have no fuel, right? That's when things can kind of go bad mentally. And then it just is all downhill from there.
Yeah, yeah. There's a few things that are wrapped up in the changes that you described. One of the things that you noted, which is a good a good thing to remember for a lot of the folks that are listening, watching, that don't have full control over all the pieces of your environment and all the pieces of your routine before, after training. You're not always going to be coming into a training session, a race, a workout, a practice, fully fueled, fully hydrated. Ideally, that would be the case where you don't like you come in and you could just go right away. But if your battery coming into it's already 50% empty because maybe you didn't get a chance to eat much beforehand, it's early morning and you legit don't feel good eating that much in that soon before workout, you forgot, you were busy at work, you had classes all day, like the list is endless as to why it would be really difficult to eat enough before a meaningful training session. You not all is lost in your ability to make it worth your while, because you noted you were 50 kilometers out on a cycle in the middle of nowhere and you had stuff with you to rehydrate. And you had did you have a fuel source with you as well, or was it just hydration and electrolytes?
It was like a gel.
Okay, so and you bounced back like a wilted flower.
Exactly. Yeah. Like a phoenix.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because it's that's kind of it's lucrative because it's like, well, does the nutrition before matter? But the aim is to try and address the weakest link and where your limiting factors are. Your limiting factor in that moment was probably a combination of hydration and glycogen stores. And you chose a quick, simple carb source that got into your system quickly, the gel, and then rehydration with electrolytes and fluids. So you corrected both of those in ways that were intentionally quick to bounce back within a few minutes, which you can do and rely a little bit more on to prevent that bonk or the wall from happening. You just got to anticipate a little bit more. Had you known like this moving forward, this is a strategy that you could use. If you know your fueling going into it sucked and you have a lengthy session or effort wherein you're like, yeah, there's a possibility that the wall's going to meet me somewhere in this session, then don't wait for it to happen. You know it's going to happen at some point because of some whatever reason. Then that's where the strategy of drip feeding throughout the session can be helpful, because then you're just trying to prevent it. You know it's going to happen eventually, maybe, but you're just trying to prevent it from happening, or as preventing happening as intensely.
Exactly, and that was my strategy for my half Ironman, like, again, having felt that feeling, I was like, "That can't happen on race day, like, that can't happen 3 hours in, like, yes, I can bounce back, but, like, mentally, that can't happen," and so, it kind of like you said, it was every 30 minutes, basically, it was like food, food, carb drink, gel, like, I was chewing food, I had, like, a whole pouch full, it was crazy, but, again, like, you learn those lessons and you make sure that you can have the best session based on kind of what's given to you. And I think to your point, like even if you don't have everything, like even if all your ducks aren't in a row before your session, doing it anyways is so perfect because the odds are that everything's going to line up perfectly on race day is so slim that if you've had these kind of practices where you didn't feel the best, where you didn't sleep the best, it's just going to give you that confidence on your race day to be like, you know what, I've been here, I can do this, I'm fine, right? Like that confidence and resilience.
Totally. That's excellent point. That's I couldn't. I don't even have anything to add to that line. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Um, and there's those little nitpicky things too, like something simple like how you carry those things with you. You mentioned a pouch. Like, do you use like a hip belt or a vest, or what do you use?
I have a hip belt, I have a vest, like, again, once I kind of hit that moment, I was, like, on Amazon at Lululemon, I was like, "I need a pouch, I need the water bottles that go in, I need the gels," I was in the running room, so I have a vest that I'll wear on runs for that are longer than an hour, like, if it's under an hour, I'm like, "You know what? It's quick, it's short, nothing's depleting that bad, like, you're fine." But once it gets over an hour, I like to have the water because I just sweat really bad. So I like to have a one pouch has water, one has electrolytes. And then based on, I usually like to do it after an hour every 30 minutes. So if I'm going for like a 90-minute run, I'll bring usually one gel or one I use those go-go squeeze pouches. Sometimes I'll just do candy. I know that's kind of bad, but it's quick and it almost just makes the run more enjoyable if I know I've got like some gummies in my pouch for me. Um, and then yeah, like I said, every 30 minutes. If it's 2 hours, then I'm looking to bring around 2 to 3 snacks. And just making sure I've I'm good. I've got everything.
Oh, I love it. Because it's as much about like having the fuel and like the hitting those targets at those time points, but like if you got to carry it with you, it's more than that. You got to get used to having it. You got to get used to fumbling with it. You got to get used to like all those little things, like which foods are you going to have during that, you know, you don't choke on, you like the taste of, don't get stuck in your teeth. Maybe that actually is kind of nice because then the flavor will stick around in your mouth longer. But like all those little random things that don't seem like they matter much, but it's as much about practicing those pieces that can lead to, like you said, feeling confident that like everything's gonna work out because you've done it before. It's not like the classic, and I've had people talk to me about this wherein it's like, I tried this, I got this new bar from Costco, and I tried it out, and like, probably it didn't end super well because they weren't used to it. And
The, like, number 1 rule is don't try new things on competition day. Don't do it. So, yeah, I also think it's hard, like, the first time you actually, like, eat while running, you get so out of breath because you don't realize that what you're using to breathe, like all of a sudden you've got to chew, you've got to swallow, you like you said, you've got to fumble with the wrapper. And I don't know, sometimes your fingers swell when it's hot and you're running. And it's definitely a challenge. It's not something you want to do for the first time on race day because it'll kind of freak you out. Like you're like, wait, why is my heart rate spiking? Why am I out of breath? Because you're eating, you're chewing, like you're doing other things, right? That's not just the run.
Yeah. And if you're anybody like me who has a messed up nose and sinuses, so like breathing only through my nose 100% of the time, which is not ideal, or which is ideal. Like I'm kind of half nose, half mouth breather. If I'm chewing on something, like it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky. So you got to be very particular with those things that you have. That's just kind of how it goes. Yeah. Um, Funny actually, a note on candies. Uh, Candies can actually be kind of handy for reasons like, yeah, enjoyment and, add some pizzazz to your session or to your competition. But the zingy kind of soury nature of some candies like stimulate saliva production for some people that get dry mouths when they're doing a lot of endurance exercise. Handy.
Okay, that's good to know because usually I've stayed away from sour and the tangy because I was like, I don't really want that taste in my mouth when I'm running. I stick to the more like plain ones, but maybe I'll have to try that out, especially when it's hot and you definitely need that.
Yeah, because I mean, if your person gets dry mouth, it's hot outside, like, or if you're a person that's taking medications and having a dry mouth is a symptom or a side effect rather of something like that, then it can help. Obviously, the depending on the sourness factor, increase the chance of like choking on it because if it catches you weird and then you like, yeah, it's so practice, obviously.
Exactly. Not on race day.
Yeah. Oh, this is cool, man. So coming up for you said half marathon in May. What are some things that you're practicing or that you're working on right now, nutrition wise, if anything?
Right now, I've been big on the electrolytes, like just trying to make sure. I don't know what happened to me last summer. Something like shifted in how much I sweat. Like I used to be just like a normal sweaty person, I would say. But now every time I run, it is just like absolute like hair soaked to the ponytail and it's very like grainy, like I'm losing a lot of water and I'm losing a lot of electrolytes as well. I can like feel it on my skin and it is like the second I start running, whether it's indoor, outdoor, whether it's minus 30, whether it's 20 degrees in the gym, like it is crazy. So to me, that's kind of been a big one is just making sure that like after, and it doesn't have to be directly after for me, but just like sometime that day, I'm having some electrolytes, even if it's just like a pinch of salt in my water. I'm like, I need something here. And then just yeah, playing around with that fuel again. Like I feel like I'm such a baby, a newbie to fueling because I only started doing it about last summer. So really making sure for me, like the second the run is over an hour, even if it's just for like if I know it's gonna be like an 80-minute run, like taking something at the hour mark because again, like it's just that practice and it never hurts to have to try out new foods, see how it affects you and see like the proof in it, right? Like the proof in knowing you can finish your run strong and knowing that you can, complete it.
Yeah, you hit on a couple cool points there about one of them is that I mean there may be genuine changes in how your body responds and sweat rates and things like this, but physiology changes over time, and there may be reasons that you can pinpoint. There may not be reasons that you can pinpoint, but at the end of the day, recognizing that a change happens and then adjusting your approach accordingly instead of just sitting there pissed off that it's happening and trying to fix it, just roll with it because you can. You're sweating more, you're losing more electrolytes. Replace accordingly, particularly in situations where your tolerance to heat is worse, like when it's getting warmer slash hotter outside, or if the effort is long enough for that to matter. But it could also be a function of improved hydration and improved electrolyte intake in those moments too, because if you're sweating less and you're typically a pretty heavy sweater, that's usually a good sign that you're dehydrated. So, but it could be any of those factors, I think, that are at play.
Yeah, and, like, it's weird 'cause I think it was a couple times, like, cause right in the peak of my training for my half Ironman, it was when it was, like, 40 degrees in Edmonton, right? So I was like, "Well, I can't not train." So I trained through it, like, I tried to still go in the morning, but again, still 30 degrees, and I don't like, I think that was my turning point, like, that's what changed me, like, I don't like, you don't acclimatize that quick, you wouldn't acclimatize that permanently, but, like, ever since then, specifically, like, I've just been, yeah, very sweaty.
Yep. I've historically that is me. I remember training, running on a treadmill in a gym one time. It was winter, and then somebody working at the gym legit walked up to me and handed me a towel, just because there was sweat everywhere.
Yeah. I feel bad for the people next to me. I'm, like, trying to wipe it so it doesn't get in my eyes. It's going over the place. Disgusting.
just sweat flying everywhere. Yeah. I'm curious with your fuel during runs or cycles. Have you ever kept track of how many grams of carbohydrate you've taken in?
No, that hasn't really been something I've kept track of at all other than, like, if I take a gel, and I usually don't take gels just because they're so expensive, and then if you're taking, like, 3 per run per week, it adds up so quickly, so I try to kinda use other alternatives, but I think moving forward, that could be something I look at because, again, a bit of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, so I would so track it.
And using things that are easily trackable. I mean, gels. I mean, obviously they're handy, they're portable, they're convenient, they're easy to track, which is a cool thing. Um, there's the classic 30, 60, 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour. Most people find a sweet spot between 30 or 60 or around 60 grams per hour. Most people have to train their gut in order to tolerate above 60, like approaching that 90. I've even seen some research of people being able to tolerate up to 120 grams of carbohydrate per hour. But these are like marathoners, Ironmans, ultra marathons, people that like they need that. But like there was a long time where 90 was thought to be the cap, wherein anything above that, the additional burden on the gut wasn't worth the additional fuel intake. But I mean, and in that's where if you need to pre-portioning things, using things like that's where kind of like hilarious. Actually, candies can come in, or putting it in your beverage because you're portioning it out, you're measuring it out ahead of time, or you just know how much of one thing will get you to something, or things that have a label that can be easily measured, and then yeah, seeing how much you are taking in a certain time span, if it's a session that matters, like stuff that's above an hour or whatever else, and then seeing how much you took in, what the duration was, and then if it was 60 per hour or 30 or whatever it happens to be, if you bump it up by like 15 per hour from 30 grams to 45 grams per hour, do you notice the difference? Yes, no, or only in certain contexts? Because then you can know, okay, I need to hit this. And then you can try with other foods to see if that food works well. If it doesn't, if you can hit that 30 or 45 gram mark with literally any food, or does it need to be a certain thing? Because, of course, once you start getting up higher, that means you're just taking in more of the things. And you need to make sure that that is not going to work against you by just having so much of one flavor of something that you just like that becomes something that works against you when you're actually trying to take in more of it.
It's so funny you mentioned, like, the flavor too, because I think it's like I'm not a picky person, like, I don't mind any flavors, but sometimes when you're running, like, the wrong flavor can just totally set you off and, like, ruin your not ruin your run, but basically ruin it, right? Like, it just lingers, and it's, like, all you could think about, and it's, like, it's just the worst. So, yeah, I think that'd be interesting moving forward to just see to track it, because if you know and you can find something that works, like, I think that's, like, the big thing about nutrition is it's this giant tool that you can, like, choose to ignore and you can choose to just, like, do whatever you want, or you can really utilize it to maximize your gains, as lame as that sounds, but, like, to really maximize, like, your gains and your performance, so I'll be tracking from now on.
I mean, the strongest predictor of adaptation over time, whether it's strength or endurance, because there's a lot of things, a lot of people don't realize that when you're when you're training an endurance sport, you're not most people are the goal is not to build muscle. You're trying to improve your cardiovascular uh, endurance, your fitness level, whatever label people want to use there. But there's a lot of changes that happen internally that are not necessarily physically visible, like muscle gain is. And so the strongest predictor to having those adaptations over time happen is training volume. Your ability to train hard enough for long enough at high enough volume so that your body gets used to that level of work. And of course, if you don't have the fuel or the hydration in place in order to do that, then it doesn't really matter because it won't happen anyways.
Exactly. Like I think they like sit you down on the first day of like kinesiology school, we can call it, and they kind of teach you these like four principles, and they seem like such common sense, but when you take them and apply them to the situations, you realize how nuanced they are. But one of them is the overload principle, and that's like you said, like that's if you want to get better, like you need to be overloading the system. So whether that's like you said through volume, through intensity, each workout needs to be like slightly harder than the last workout, right? And eventually you're like, well, what does that look like? Like, how am I just going to eventually be running 1,000 kilometers? And it's like, no, because as you age, your body also declines, right? So it's a bit of a fight. But if you need to be, you have this goal you want to reach for whatever reason, and you need to be going into every practice hitting your volume, hitting the right intensity, and making sure that you can wake up tomorrow and do the exact same thing. So if you're not eating the right foods like before, during, and after, it's just going to make it that much harder to hit that volume and get that overload, and it really is like detrimental to your progress as an athlete. And I think that's like pretty much across the board in any sport. If you're not able to wake up and put that same intensity in every day, like you're really going to see the effects of it.
Yeah. All right. It may not get worse, but it definitely won't get better as quick as you want it to. That's for sure. That like I feel like I'm not functioning at the level that I want to, or for people that do other things and aren't professional athletes, which is probably most people that are listening to this. If all of the things that are related to your training, you put all of it into that, which means that now you are just absolutely dead tired and can't not do anything outside of training and practice and workouts, and you don't have a life outside of it and you want to, then that's also meaningful too, which is a whole other thing. But yeah, that's important. Um, Man, I my legit saying I need framed behind me is we could talk for hours about this because we legit could. And there's so many nitty gritty things that I want to like poke and prod and dig into with you, but we don't have the time to. And we have many other opportunities to do other episodes on this. But any things that sparked in your mind that you want to finish off with before we wrap the episode up?
I don't think so. I think maybe to anyone listening, just like really try not to follow and I don't know, not follow anything too strict, but just like do your best. There's no like hard and fast rule about how to fuel or how like there's no optimized diet to follow to run quicker or to be stronger or anything. Like there's the certain kind of key points and just try to stick to those and don't let it control you, right? Like if I think if the nutrition side of your sport starts to become bigger than the sport itself, that's when the problem comes. Like I said before, it's like that little tool that can really help you perform and just be better all overall, like you said, like really lead that holistic life, but it shouldn't be all you think about and all you do, because you're doing the sport because you love it, and eating right kind of allows you to do that. So I think that's what's kind of the takeaway for me, hopefully.
You hope that's the case. I mean, that digs into everybody's motivation and driver behind all their goals and things like this, which is that's a whole thing. But a very valuable point, though. I think a good place to leave us off. Tassa, thank you for spending the time with me this afternoon. It's afternoon here, maybe morning or evening or afternoon, wherever you are listening or watching. But I hope that we can welcome you on the podcast again to blab about sports nutrition a little bit more at some point.
I would love that. I feel like you said, we could talk for hours about this. So this was awesome. Thank you for having me.
of course. And to everybody watching and listening, please like, subscribe, follow, whatever the appropriate thing to do on the platform that you're watching this on or listening to this on. Check out our previous, I was going to say a mixture of prior and previous episodes that we've released. We try to release them at least every couple of weeks, sometimes more often, sometimes less often, but we got a ton of them. We have more coming, hopefully in the realm of sports nutrition and performance nutrition, so watch out for those. But for now, it's been a blast. Have an excellent rest of your day wherever you are.